Coming up on Broncos weekend, after a one-point loss in the opener, Denver looks to bounce back against the Washington Commanders.
These guys are really good. They do some really good things. They're coached extremely well.
2 touchdown drives for the offense. We'll discuss how it will continue to evolve this week. Perhaps we'll see some plays down the field.
And I'm all for a 17-play drive, don't get me wrong, but I'm also like a 5-play drive.
Plus, with Commanders QB Sam Howell set to make his 3rd career start, what's the defense's game plan to generate a pass rush?
The next game's always the biggest game, and this week is Washington, so we got to find a way to bounce back and get a win.
Broncos weekend starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos Weekend. I am Phil Milani, alongside the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater and Super Bowl 50 champ Ryan Harris. We're getting you ready for kickoff with the Washington Commanders coming to town. And our main story this week, how can the Broncos avoid an 0-2 hole here to start, Steve?
And a lot of people may be thinking that, hey, this is just going to be an easy game. Broncos are going to win this running away. Guess what? The Washington Commanders, they're playing football. They're playing good football, good sound football. They have an amazing defensive interior front, and it's going to be a good game. I think that regardless of the outcome of the game, the leaders in that locker room have to make sure that the overwhelming mentality of everybody is, it doesn't matter what our record is. We're going to go out there, we're going to give 110% every single play.
I like what he said, too, there by Steve. Leaders. You got to make sure some leaders have to step up after losses. And it can't just be Russell Wilson, Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons. There've got to be guys on every position group that say, guys, that wasn't good enough. We have to find more, and this is how we're going to do it.
And just looking at the statistics here, the odds are stacked against teams starting 0-2, guys. Since 1990, only 11.5% of teams have made the playoffs. That compared to nearly 42% of teams that started 1-1. So there's a pretty big difference here, starting 0-2 versus 1-1.
Belief and worry take the same amount of energy. And as players, you're not thinking about going 0-2. You're saying, I believe we're going to get our first win of the season. That's where all your energy has to go if you're a Broncos player. Doing the little things, studying the notes, studying the subtle changes in the game plan. That's what's going to make you successful. You can have time to worry about it later. You got an opportunity in front of you that you can make the most of with a win.
And I don't even think that they're worried about winning and losing. I think the main thing should be, I'm going to go out there and execute the plan that we put in place, that we've been practicing all week long, and execute that to perfection.
Just get better every week.
Don't even worry about the wins and losses. Go out there and take care of business. At the end of the game, you'll be a happy camper.
Well, the Broncos are flipping the page here to the Washington Commanders. Head coach Sean Payton says there were a lot of teachable moments from week 1.
There were a number of things we cleaned up. The exactness of what we're doing, both in the running game and the passing game. And again, me as a play caller, I look back and I'm like, we have to start looking at ourselves first before anything else. And so I know I can be better.
And what we're watching for this week is this Broncos offense and how it'll continue to evolve week to week. Guys, a lot of talk this week on the offensive side about taking some shots down the field, making that defense stretch them out a little bit. You think we'll see some more of that this week?
Yeah, I'm hoping we can, but with that, we're also playing against a team that has a very good defensive line, both on the edge and on the interior. These guys can rush the passer. They're strong. They defend the run really well. So that offensive line is going to be mandatory that they hold up and they have to hold up a little longer than they normally would have to.
I think it's going to be a great test for the offensive line, because this offensive line, this is where they're going to have to live for the rest of the year. It's not going to get any easier for you as an offensive line when you move forward. This is a great test. Got to be able to run the football effectively, down the middle, on the edges, try and get that defense running. But you also have to hold up in the pass game to give Russell Wilson time. And if you come out with a win and the offensive line plays well, you feel like you can beat anybody as an offensive line.
Russ says that the team's not afraid to attack down the field. And in fact, he agrees with these guys. He was encouraged by what he saw against the Raiders.
Yeah, I think explosive plays come in so many different ways, and taking shots is, yes, it's the go ball, it's the big post, it's the everything that everybody loves to see, and makes everybody stand up in their seats, which is always exciting. I think also too, those explosive plays come in so many different ways. It may just be breaking a tackle. We came out in the half really thinking that we wanted to take a shot down the field. We got one. Like I said to Phil, unfortunately, I think his toenail was out.
We'll have more on Russell Wilson a little bit later on in the program, but now we're going to switch to the defensive side of the ball. No sacks against the Raiders last week. How will that change? How will they get pressure on Sam Howell and the Commanders this week? For more on our matchup of the week, here's Denver 7's Troy Rank.
Of course, it was disappointing that the Broncos lost their opener, but one of the stats that really stood out, the Broncos had 0 sacks against Las Vegas. That has to change this week against the Commanders. Why? Well, Washington, like the Broncos, has been riding the quarterback carousel since 2016. Since Peyton Manning retired, we know Broncos have had 12 quarterbacks. Since that time, the Commanders have had 13 quarterbacks. Sam Howell is the latest. He will be making his 3rd career start. First time ever he's played at altitude. So we have to factor that in when we look at the context. Javonte Williams, he played with Sam Howell at North Carolina. Loves the guy. He said he makes everyone in the locker room better. He's everyone's friend. But he's also still young. He will take chances, and you can see that here in the highlights against Arizona. All the hallmarks of a young quarterback were on display. He was sacked 6 times. What does that tell me? The Broncos got to rush him like it's a fraternity house. You've got to get in his face, force him into mistakes, because what things he will do? Number 1, he'll hold the ball too long. All young quarterbacks, it seems like, do this. They scan the field, they're not decisive, and they go to pump, boom, you hit them. That's number 1. Number 2, they struggle with climbing the pocket because a lot of them didn't have to do it in college. They just boom, boom, ball out. They didn't really have to climb the pocket to avoid pressure like you do in the NFL. File that away, Randy Gregory, Frank Clark, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, file that away. The third thing is he will take chances and try to make plays that aren't there. And that's where you have to come up with a big takeaway. Against Arizona, he tries to spin out on a play. The ball gets knocked loose. What does it end up? A scoop and score. That's one play that can change an entire game. So if you're the Broncos, understand this. Washington doesn't have a Josh Jacobs. They've got a nice running game, not a great running game. You will have the opportunity to use base defense to stop the run and be more creative in pressure. So don't be afraid to send Josie Jewell, Alex Singleton on a blitz. But if you're able to sack him at least 3 times, the Broncos will have their first win on Sunday.
Thank you very much, Troy. Talking about getting pressure on the opposing quarterback here, Sean Payton said that Drew Sanders, the rookie out of Arkansas, Steve, he's a pressure type of player. Do you think we'll see him out on the field this week?
Yeah, I hope so. But you got to give props where they're due. I mean, Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton, they had a really active game. They were physical. They were in the right place at the right time. I thought they played really solidly. And if they continue to play that way, and if the only position that he'll play is inside linebacker, it's going to be tough for him to see the field. But I think that the coaches will find some way to get Drew Sanders involved with this game because Drew can cover, and he's extremely physical as a defensive player. So those types of players, you got to get them on the field at some point in the season.
And the size that Drew Sanders has, the size at linebacker, they don't have that anywhere else on the roster. I'm with Steve. Singleton played well. Josie Jewell played well. And you need a monster in the middle of your defense who intimidates the offense from crossing in a 10-yard radius of that player. Drew Sanders has that capability. Get him a ton of reps in practice. And then one thing that worked for me, and I'm sure worked for you, Steve, put him in the game. Get him in there. It's tough as a player to see in practice how your mistakes can impact a score, but you put a player in the game, you learn that very quickly, and I believe Drew Sanders will respond in the best way.
Time for our first break here. When we come back, Russell Wilson could hit a career mark this week that no other quarterback in NFL history has ever accomplished. Plus, we'll have our bold predictions. That's next on Broncos Weekend.
Elway's in the shotgun, steps up in the pocket, looking long. Here goes the pass. Rod Smith up. He got it! Broncos win! Time has run out. Unbelievable.
John took a look at both sides of the field. He saw corner rotation on one side. He saw the corner off on the other, and he came back and threw a ball that most quarterbacks can't make with that type of velocity. Ron made a big throw, and obviously Ron made a great catch.
That's our memorable matchup this week. 1995, the Broncos winning on a Hail Mary against Washington. Rod Smith's first ever reception. We're back here in studio with Steve Atwater and Ryan Harris. Steve, you remember that play?
Oh, I remember like it was yesterday. John Elway just throws a Hail Mary deep into the end zone, and Rod Smith goes up with those big, ginormous hands that he has, and he caught one over one of the greatest cornerbacks to play, Darryl Green. And, that was such a memorable play. It's such a clutch moment. And for that to be his first reception of his career, it was amazing.
Well, anytime Rod Smith touches the ball, it was great for Broncos country. And it was a taste of more to come. And one of the best Broncos as a person, too, as a Broncos alumni.
Yeah. That was the first game I ever attended.
No way.
Way to go.
Yeah.
All right.
I was 9 years old. I was hooked.
Yes. Number 80.
A lot of these old guys are going to be back this weekend. The alumni, the Broncos celebrating, and they could be in store for a treat, see something a little special here. Our key stat this week, with 33 yards rushing, Russell Wilson will become the first quarterback in NFL history to pass for 40,000 yards and rush for 5,000. That's a pretty incredible stat, considering he'd be the first guy ever to do that.
Yeah, that's incredible to have a quarterback to play the length of time that he's played and to be as effective for as long as he's played, and he's still playing at a high level. So, and I know a lot of Broncos country wants to see him get the 6,000 yards rushing at some point here. So, we're really happy for him, and I'm hoping that'll happen this weekend.
And he better get it quick, too, because he knows he's not going to be the last one, the way quarterbacks are running the football now. And you got Jalen Hurts out there, Patrick Mahomes. So I don't think this is a focus of the game for Russell Wilson, but he's aware of it, and he wants to get there first. Yeah.
He looked sharp last week, guys. A lot of people focus just on the 16 points, but his 108 rating was the 5th highest in the NFL.
Yeah, it was good. Again, he was throwing the passes where they need to be throwing, where they need to be thrown, and also he was on time. I think that he feels he's getting more and more comfortable with this offense each and every week.
I think it's amazing he was so productive with the fact that he was missing Greg Dulcich. I mean, that was a big piece of the offense. A lot of times the tight end can be up to a third of the offense. Coach Payton even talking about it after the game. So to have an 80% completion percentage, 79 point whatever, and have new players in and then different players in the game, that is truly remarkable and shows the mastery that Russell Wilson has within him.
Okay, well, we're looking ahead now to the Washington game. Time for some bold predictions, Steve.
Oh, man. Well, my bold prediction is we'll have 2 interceptions on the defensive side of the ball, one of them being by Essang Bassi.
All right.
Keep it going.
I was wondering about that. I've been waiting to see.
Keep it going from the preseason.
Yeah,
Massey, okay, I like it.
I got 2 rushing touchdowns by the Broncos. I think after last week, losing that divisional game, the offensive line is going to be motivated. One of the best ways to score touchdowns in the NFL is to run the football. And if you have a rushing touchdown, you have a 60% chance of winning the game. I got 2 rushing touchdowns for the Broncos in this one.
Last week, Cortland Sutton, you said 2 touchdowns, almost got them.
Almost.
Okay, you heard it here first. It's time now for our interview of the week. Let's go inside the Broncos locker room and check in with team reporter Sydney Jones.
Thanks, Phil. We're here checking in with safety Kareem Jackson. Kareem, we all heard the news this week about Caden Stearns being placed on IR with that patellar tendon. I know we talked in training camp just about the season he was primed to have. So have you talked to him? How is he feeling?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to him. He's in better spirits now. Just trying to keep him, positive. He got a long road ahead of him. At the end of the day, for us and the rest of the guys in the secondary, it's just all about supporting him and just being there for him. Whatever he needs, however we can support him, we'll still do that, just like he's here with us every day. So still our brother. We still love him. And like I said, he got a long road ahead of him. And, we don't want him to, feel like he's alone.
I know P.J. Locke is also on IR, so what have you seen from Delarian Turner-Yell and J.L. Skinner? How do you hope to see them step up?
There's 2 guys that are definitely getting better each and every day. Just taking in the defense and processing it and just being, vocals as safeties, But they've been, getting better, like I say, each and every day from camp to now, So I think whenever it's their time and if their number's called, they'll be able to come in and play well.
As you guys have turned the page, what are you expecting from this defense on Sunday versus the Commanders?
Just expecting us to go out and execute the game plan. Obviously we know that they have a ton of young talent, it's about us recognizing the different formations and different sets that they're in and knowing where their guys are that they like to get the ball to and just try to eliminate those guys and fly around. For us, I think we have to create more turnovers, get the offense more opportunities. So just look forward to that and just executing the game plan.
What have you seen on tape from Commanders quarterback Sam Howell? What challenges does he present?
Has a strong arm, can make all the throws. Like I said, got a ton of young talent, so he's getting those guys the ball, and just let him take it from there. He's going to run around a little bit. We have to keep him in the pocket. He's a dual threat guy, so that'll be a challenge for us, but I think we can do it.
Kareem, I know this is year 14 for you, so what does your weekly routine kind of look like? How do you prepare for games at this point in your career?
I don't know if we got enough time to talk about it all. But for me, just trying to stay within my daily recovery and routine. For me, it's more recovery-wise than actual physical things. Obviously, practice is practice, but for me, turning cold tubs, adjustments. Any little thing I can do to get my body back ready, to go practice and to get ready for Sundays.
How have you seen that kind of change, I guess, over the years? Thinking back to your rookie season.
It's changed a lot. I remember I used to didn't have to do all that stuff. I could just, be the first person to run out of the building and didn't have to do an extra cold tub and then all this other stuff. So now I'm usually one of the last guys here. So, I guess the older you get, the more it kind of change. But, it helps me out a lot. Gets me ready to go, and I'm able to be out there on Sundays and, healthy. So I'll stick to it. And here and there, if I need to add things, I'll continue to do that as well.
Well, looking forward to Sunday's matchup. Kareem, appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sydney. Let's talk about this Broncos secondary for a second here in the studio. They lost Caden Stearns, done for the season. You hate to see him go down because all offseason, all throughout training camp, we're talking about, hey, this was going to be a breakout year for him. Who do you think could step up in his place there, Steve?
Yeah, well, first off, man, I want to say my heart goes out to Caden and, wishing them all the best with the recovery there. But we do have some guys that can step in and fill that position. Number one, DeLarn Turner-Yell. He was, throughout the preseason, he was flying around primarily on special teams, but even when he got a chance to play on defense, he did a nice job. Also, another guy many people haven't heard of, Devin Key, in the preseason as well. That last preseason game, man, he's a physical safety. He's in the right place at the right time, and I'm anxious to see if they'll get some action. And then the rookie, J.L. Skinner, everybody's anxious to see him. I'm really anxious to see him. I got a chance to spend some time with him, talk to him a little bit, and I'm anxious to see where he's developed up to this point.
I want J.L. Skinner simply because he talked to Steve Atwater. That's number one. I want to see more of J.L. Skinner. But you got Kareem Jackson back there. That's why he's there. And, you have a strong defense. So the big thing is getting the communications down and then also understanding how offenses are going to attack the defense. I mean, you've got Patrick Surtain, and yes, there was a couple of challenges early, but the Raiders went away from that. Teams are going to go away from that. So what does that mean for the other players on the defense? Where's the ball likely to go? When can you take chances? That's going to be the most important thing over who's playing because they have a lot of depth on that defense.
Time for our final break here. When we come back, we offer our keys to the game. What will it take to get a victory? Plus, is it time to start Javonte Williams on your fantasy team? We'll be right back on Broncos Weekend.
Yeah, that's something that they pride themselves on, the front four. For the Commanders, you could tell by how much they invested in it. I think it's like 4 or 5 first-round picks. So, if we can get past them, we'll probably have a good day. But we're gonna treat it just like any other team. We're not gonna just pay specific attention to the D-line. This is another NFL team, and we got to get a win.
Love hearing that from Javonte Williams as he continues to get stronger and stronger, working his way back from that terrible knee injury. Last week, he looked like the 2021 version of himself. Well, for more, let's check in with Sydney Jones once again. Here's our Fantasy Focus.
For this week's Fantasy Focus, let's take a look at running back Javonte Williams. It was really encouraging to see him come out last weekend in the Broncos season opener versus the Raiders, looking like the same Javonte Williams he was prior to his injuries. A tough, physical back that's hard to tackle. In week 1, he had 13 carries for 52 yards and 4 receptions for 5 yards, recording 9.7 fantasy points in PPR leagues. This weekend versus the Commanders, he is projected to have 15 carries for 62 yards and 3 receptions for 22 yards, which which would result in 14.8 fantasy points on Sunday. If you look at some of the other productive backs in the league, Derrick Henry finished with 13.9 points last weekend. Nick Chubb had 16.7 fantasy points, and Joe Mixon produced 10.3 points. Javonte is right up there, right in the mix with those guys. Not to mention, last week, Javonte was targeted 6 times. 6 targets is more than both Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler had in week 1. The upside is there for him to have more yards in the passing game with that many opportunities, certainly more than just the 5 yards he had last week, especially as his role continues to grow here within Sean Payton's offense. So I definitely think it's worth starting Javonte this week on your fantasy lineup.
Thank you very much, Sydney. We're back here at the desk. Guys, time for our final thoughts now. What will it take to avoid an 0-2 start?
Well, I say 2 primary things. Number 1, do not overlook the Washington Commanders. This team, again, they went out and played a good game. And everybody's saying Arizona is terrible, whatever. Arizona, they played a good game, I thought, against the Commanders. So don't overestimate them. And then number 2, I think the offensive line is going to have to show up and show up big. You got to play for 60 minutes because the interior defensive line and the edge for the Commanders, they're very solid.
And that's why, for me, the key start right there. Number 1, run the ball. Number 2, change the snap count. Anytime we were playing the defensive line to have multiple first-round picks, I'm talking on Wednesday to the coaching staff and the quarterbacks. You better change that snap count because if you give them no guessing, it's going to be a tough day for everybody. And lastly, on defense, I'm with Steve. Get some turnovers. Those turnovers bring curtains for your opponent. If you get a couple turnovers, the run game's going well, you get those 2 rushing touchdowns, that's a W for Broncos country.
So you went back there, you're like, hey, Peyton, I need a little bit of something.
Peyton, hey, Coobs, hey, all of you, listen up right now. Hey, change the count. But Kubiak was great at that. West Coast offense is great for changing the snap count.
The Broncos are 6-2 all-time at home against Washington. And in this series, the home team has won the 5 previous games. So that's an encouraging sign here for the Broncos. Yeah. We'll see. That's going to do it for us, for Troy Rank and Sidney Jones, and us here at the desk. I am Phil Milani, alongside the Hall of Famer Steve Atwater and Super Bowl 50 champ Ryan Harris. Thank you so much for watching Broncos Weekend.